Good evening, I'm Saraya Mia, and you're tuning in to AWANI tonight. New chicken ceiling prices to be announced soon. And on going green, how do you persuade people to change behaviors? That's coming up. The government has decided against increasing electricity and water tariffs in the peninsula. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob also says the prices of chicken will again be capped and a new ceiling price will be announced soon. In a statement, Ismail Sabri says the decision was made despite rising fuel prices. This will cost the government 5.8 billion ringgit in subsidies. The current ceiling price of chicken, set at 8 ringgit and 90 cents per kg, will be lifted on June 30th. Meanwhile, cooking oil and bottled packaging of 2 kg, 3 kg and 5 kg will also no longer be subsidized from July 1st. Pasir Salah MP Datuk Seri Tajuddin Abdul Rahman has been removed from the UMNO Supreme Council. In a letter circulating online dated June 21st, the party's Secretary General, Datuk Seri Ahmad Maslan, thanked Tajuddin for his service to the party.
Ahmad said Tajuddin should continue his service as a committed party member and congratulated him on his new role as the country's ambassador to Indonesia. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob confirmed last month that Tajuddin's appointment as an envoy was agreed upon by Indonesian President Joko Widodo. Tajuddin was previously sacked as Prasarana Malaysia Berhad's non-executive chairman in May last year.
Meanwhile, Malaysia registered a 2.8% year-on-year increase in consumer prices for May amid soaring food prices. The National Statistics Department says food inflation rose to a new high of 5.2%, the highest since November 2011.
Chief Statistician Datuk Seri Muhammad Uzair Mahidin says the price of chicken, the largest component in the meat subgroup, rose 13.4% year-on-year due to an increase in demand and rising cost of feed. The average price of chicken increased to 9 ringgit 70 cents per kilogram, compared to 8 ringgit 44 cents in May last year. For other sectors, the cost of transport rose by 3.9%, restaurants and hotels by 3.7%, while furnishings, household equipment and routine household maintenance gained 2.9%. Meanwhile, core inflation was up 2.4% last month, led by a 4.7% hike in the transport group and a 4.4% increase in the food and non-alcoholic beverages sector.
Companies want employees back in the office now that the pandemic is winding down, but many are reluctant to return to work arrangements before. Could co-working space that offers more flexibility provide the missing puzzle piece in building a hybrid workplace? Cynthia Ng speaks to Work CEO Stephanie Ping.
We've gone through a whole work-from-home experiment, and that has caused a lot of companies to rethink how they work. So in the past, you got to go to the office, you got to go to the HQ, you got to go Mondays to Fridays. But now hybrid work is really on a lot of companies' minds, and they're implementing it. So using co-working spaces like our spaces is extremely productive for them. And no longer are they required to have one HQ downtown. They allow people to work from closer to their homes everywhere. And flexibility is something that is taking off.
Do you see companies try to scale down office space now that we are emerging from the pandemic? We have tested hybrid working, seems to work for some, maybe not for others, but do you see that's changing right now?
Oh, absolutely. What we see is that companies practice a rotational thing. I think it must have been Harvard Business Review that did a study that recommends like a 3-2-2 adoption. 3 days at work, 2 days at home, and 2-day weekend. And then what we're seeing is that companies require, let's say, 50 desks, but really we are issuing 80 to 100 key cards, and they're rotating in the space. And then they have this in maybe several other outlets and so forth. And they need sort of a company like ours to help them manage all of that rotational and also have flex space for them.
Stephanie also discusses reshaping existing working arrangements to be more inclusive, especially for mothers who desire to return to work but are not in the same capacity as before. It starts with removing disadvantages and biases women face in their careers after having children.
Certainly, I've actually heard of conversations where people disadvantage an applicant for a job because they're a mother, because they're a single mother, that kind of thing. And, you know, I wouldn't stand for that, right? I would speak up and say that's not right. The candidate, if they can manage their life in their job, it's really irrelevant, but it's still being said. So I think people who care would naturally want to come up with policies to help. We give flexibility to our staff who are mothers. Even before the government had policies, we'd give paternity leave more than the industry norm because the first, you know, even few days is very important. Having mother's room, and not just a room that is sort of with a chair. You want to give a proper, comfortable, plush. We even provide breast pump to all our sites, and if we custom build a site for, say, an MNC, we provide all the way to the breast pump, because these little things like not having to bring a huge bag of this equipment to work really helps. Right. Having kindergarten near our sites, like right outside here, for example, is another thing that would help. And like I say, also the culture. If you are open for them to have a little bit more time to start picking up, say most of the time tech tools or something, you will find that after the initial phase of learning, they're actually really dedicated and diligent team members.
Time for a quick break. Stay with us.
Cukup rasa, tak kenal tak cinta. Lagi cukup rasa, mencari lauknya apa jua. Hebat rasa, Maggi cukup rasa. Saya memberinya kebaikan barley malt, susu, koko serta vitamin dan mineral penting untuk membebaskan tenaga daripada sarapan berkhasiat.
COVID-19 memperlihatkan kepada kita betapa pantasnya adaptasi teknologi di kalangan PKS kita. Niaga AWANI dan Unified Business akan menyelami perjalanan kebangkitan semula PKS kita melalui segmen Jiwa SME setiap Selasa dan Khamis untuk inspirasi anda.
Transformasikan perniagaan dengan Unified Business, rakan digital pilihan anda. Hubungi kami sekarang dan jimat sehingga 50%. Jom Unified Business.
Welcome back. How do you persuade people to change their behavior? There's no single answer, especially when it comes to reducing waste. Local nonprofit Zero Waste Malaysia has taken a creative approach to advocating sustainable development, which includes using handbooks and memes.
Memes do perform really well sometimes, but they also have a certain crowd where you need to come in and let them know what they can do as what they can do to improve instead of just pointing out the bad stuff or instead of just being sarcastic. And besides that, we organize some workshops as well. So our workshops, particularly on the corporate side, are best for outreach to the older generation. So instead of just educating and speaking and telling them things, we actually show them how you can reduce waste. So we do this by, sometimes we bring in our partners who sell some zero waste products so people can see these on-hand actual low waste transformative tools. And sometimes we also do workshops that deal with food waste, so how people can actually immediately start reducing waste by turning, for example, food scraps into body scrubs.
The methods employed by Zero Waste Malaysia stood out. They were recently invited to present their handbook at the Creative Bureaucracy Festival in Berlin. Using simple storytelling techniques with interactive visuals, the handbook guides behavior change through simple, actionable steps that can be done as a community.
Not everyone is willing to accept change. So changes to your lifestyle. Let's say, if we had a no plastic straws ban tomorrow, the whole of Malaysia, there was bound to be some form of complaints and everything. So at the same time, it's hard to push so much change on a person at one time. So that's why we always advocate to take things one step at a time. Just change one thing first. Try not to get too disappointed when you don't see so much change in your lifestyle, because we are also still practicing and learning the lifestyle, and we all hit bumps in the road. So we do try and keep a positive mindset and try and encourage people who do feel down sometimes.
On to international news. The European Union has granted Ukraine official candidate status to join their 27-nation club, a step that both Kiev and the EU hails as a historic moment. President Volodymyr Zelensky said the move was a big step towards strengthening Europe at a time when Russia was testing its freedom and unity. Although it could take more than a decade for Ukraine to eventually join the EU, the candidacy is a sign of EU's intention to reach deep into the former Soviet Union.
This is a very defining moment and a very good day for Europe today. I warmly congratulate President Zelensky, President Sandu, President Zurabishvili. All three countries are part of our European family. We've never let any doubt about that. And today's historic decision by leaders confirms that. It grants all three the perspective of EU accession, and it lays down the path ahead. I think this is a moment of great satisfaction, and I'm very pleased with the leaders' endorsement of our opinions. There can be no better sign of hope for the citizens of Ukraine, Moldova and Georgia in these troubled times.
The Russian invasion prompted Kiev to formally apply for candidate status and the EU to fast-track its approval. Moldova also became an official EU candidate. The move by Ukraine and Moldova to join the EU runs in line with applications by Sweden and Finland to enter NATO in the wake of the war. Zelensky has vowed to not rest until Russia's defeat and is given full membership of the bloc. In other developments, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson suffered a double blow after losing two key parliamentary by-elections today. This signals renewed speculation about his ruling Conservative Party that won in the 2019 national election. The main opposition Labour Party won back its former stronghold seat of Wakefield in West Yorkshire, while the centrist Liberal Democrats won in Tiverton and Honiton constituency in Devon, overturning a Conservative majority of over 24,000 votes. The results prompted the party's chairman, Oliver Dowden, to quit the party. Johnson was under intense pressure to resign after he was fined for breaching COVID rules in a series of scandals. The Prime Minister also survived a no-confidence vote by his own Conservative members of Parliament earlier this month. The next national election is scheduled for 2024, but could be called earlier. Now, Thailand has lifted its COVID-19 mask mandate with immediate effect. Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha says this applies to both outdoor and indoor spaces as new cases decline and tourism rebounds. The latest announcement states that the wearing of hygienic or cloth masks shall be voluntary. However, Thailand's health ministry still advises people to keep their mask on in crowded areas with poor ventilation or where social distancing is not possible. High-risk individuals such as people aged 60 and above, pregnant women and those with cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular disease or chronic kidney disease are also advised to still wear masks. The Thai government has also lifted curbs on nightlife venues, allowing pubs, bars and karaoke lounges to operate for longer hours. Many survivors of Afghanistan's earthquake were left with no food, water and shelter as they wait for authorities to reach them. Officials said floods had further hampered their efforts to send help. The 6.1 magnitude earthquake struck hardest in the rugged east near the border with Pakistan. Entire villages have been leveled in some of the worst affected districts. Survivors even struggled to find equipment to bury the dead. Taliban officials, which led the rescue efforts, concluded the search today, just 48 hours after the quake. The death toll reached over 1,000, with thousands left homeless. The government says it'll do more to address the Myanmar crisis through ASEAN, yet its treatment of those who fled the conflict seeking refuge in Malaysia remain punitive. Tonight on Consider This, we ask our guests about this inconsistency. That's all we have for you on AWANI tonight. Thank you for watching. My name is Saraya Mia, and we'll see you again.